On an average day, there are more than 35,000 people locked up in Canadian prisons, more than enough criminals to populate a small city. Some will spend their entire life behind bars. Others will return to society to lead peaceful, productive lives. But one group of inmates worries prison authorities above all: those who must one day be released, despite strong signs they will go on to commit even graver crimes. In the 1980s, one of those dangerous inmates is a man named Douglas Whith.
Doug Whith, at that point in his life, was a career criminal. He got in trouble for the typical young person sort of issue, car theft. His record increased from there. He started traveling the country, ended up in Ontario, and there was a serious sexual assault, a rape in Ontario.
His last conviction was for raping a young Native Indian girl.
What he had done in that instance was to have basically grabbed a young woman and had dragged her into the back of a truck and had strangled her with a belt. In fact, what he had done was brutally and sexually attacked this young woman.
Douglas Whith receives an 8-year sentence for the rape. But as the years pass, he shows no signs of rehabilitation. If anything, his criminal tendencies are growing worse.
He would have outbursts where he would be involved in throwing urine and feces at other inmates as well as at correctional officers. In one instance, in his possessions was found a newspaper clipping that reported on the Yorkshire Ripper that had terrorized England. And he had written on that article that this would be my greatest fantasy come true. He declared that he was going to wreak havoc on society as revenge for the years that he had spent in prison. He declared that he was going to go to a schoolyard and with an axe chop up children. He declared that he was going to make the notorious serial murderer Clifford Olson look like a choir boy. He was doing everything to show that he should not be released into the community.
Douglas Whith is denied any chance of an early parole, but with a limited sentence, authorities will be unable to keep him behind bars forever.
Once his sentence had been served, he would have to be released into the community, and there could no longer be any controls. There would be no parole, there would be no supervision in the community.
Spring 1987. With only a few months left in Whith's sentence, a caseworker attempts to have the inmate declared insane.
In other words, they were so concerned, they sought expert opinions to determine whether or not he was, as a result of his mental disorder, someone who was a danger to himself or others and should be involuntarily committed for that reason alone.
Douglas Whith undergoes a 30-day assessment in a high-security psychiatric hospital.
The mental health professionals who saw him took the view that the mental disorder that he suffered from was not one for which they had any treatment. They diagnosed him as essentially being a psychopath.
It was determined that those conditions in and of themselves wouldn't permit him to be detained in a psychiatric hospital.
But the law is the law. He served every day of his sentence and to the minute, and they let him out. They had to.
June 1987. Despite widespread concerns, Douglas Whith is released. Authorities learn his destination is Edmonton, Alberta, the scene of his last crime.
And they knew that Doug Whith was going to be a problem. They contacted Edmonton and let them know that Doug Whith was coming to their area.
In Edmonton, Douglas Whith reconnects with a woman named Mary Kelly and her young son, Sean.
Mary Kelly first met Douglas Whith when she went to visit a friend or someone that she knew at the prison where Douglas Whith was incarcerated. She came to know him, and as a result of that, after he was released, they continued a relationship. Sean Kelly was her son of another relationship. He was an abusive partner and was known to beat her quite severely on occasion, to the point where she had to remain inside for lengths of time because of the very obvious injuries that she suffered. For a period of time, the OPP as well as the Edmonton police noted his movements, but gradually he drifted away, and as I understand it, he ended up drifting back into Ontario.
By fall, Douglas Whith's whereabouts are unknown. A dangerous ex-convict is no longer under supervision. November 1987, Brampton, Ontario, just west of Toronto. Although considered a safe community, it faces its own unique challenges when it comes to enforcing the law.
Brampton had become a center of group homes and custodial centers for young people, and they'd also had a lot of rooming houses around this downtown core that they had. They're rented by the day, the week, the month, whatever it may be. And it's always been an issue with policing because you do have people that are very transient, and it's tough to find people. It's tough to conduct investigations when people are transient.
December 1987. Originally from Saskatchewan, a young Métis girl named Trina Campbell is new to the city's downtown core.
Trina Campbell was a little girl, 12 years old. She had a series of problems in her life, problems that were not of her doing. Her parents had a number of significant issues to the point where she ended up having to live with foster parents. Trina was troubled because of her past. So Trina had run away from the foster parents, and she'd run away a series of times, to the point where they became concerned that they weren't able to control her.
It was felt that the best thing for Trina would maybe to sort of distance her from the family a little bit, to give her a more structured setting. So they put her in a group home. She was placed in a group home in Brampton.
Trina was 12 years old, and I used to say she was 12 going on 10, as opposed to a 12-year-old who was streetwise and sophisticated, and she wasn't any of those things. She was very much a little girl who just needed love and attention.
December 11th. Trina heads to school in the nearby community of Streetsville.
She was delivered to school by school bus, and after school she was picked up and dropped off at the location where she normally would be dropped off to go back to the group home.
She was seen getting off the bus by the bus driver, and then she wasn't seen again.
In light of Trina's past, workers at the group home initially assumed that she has run away.
There was actually some thoughts that she may have even come out west looking for her father, because that had been expressed by her as something she wanted to do. As time went on, our fears were increasing, that's for sure.
As the days pass, police enlist the public and escalate the search around the Brampton area.
And if anybody sees her, we'd really appreciate a call.
It was an intensive investigation, and at one point I think we blanketed the city and the Streetsville area with some 10,000 flyers as a missing person. I mean, we were canvassing neighbors, canvassing the downtown area of Brampton, trying to find out where this, who had seen this girl last, and unfortunately there was a disadvantage there because she was new to the community, and not everybody knew her. we were doing everything we could to try and find this young girl.
By early January, police are beginning to fear the worst.
As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, there was a very real possibility that something tragic had happened to Trina Campbell.
Although no evidence points to foul play, the case is transferred to the Homicide Division of the Regional Police. 2 detectives now on the case are Edward Toy and Len Favreau. Their main task is to look deeper into the collection of vague tips from the public.
There was lots of information which came in from individuals who were interested in assisting us, trying to provide us information which would help us to locate Trina, but none of that information panned out at the time. And they were all just people that believed they saw someone that looked like Trina Campbell. No one had actually spoken to her. We weren't able to really pin her down more than the night that she'd gone missing.
While investigators continue their search, there is one disturbing fact that they are unaware of. At the time, ex-convict Douglas Whith is in the area. Having left Mary and Sean Kelly in Edmonton, he has been living alone in a rooming house in downtown Brampton, not far from the very location where Trina Campbell was last seen.
We had no idea. We had no idea that this sadistic predator had moved into our area.
In the weeks following the young girl's disappearance, those around Douglas Whith note his strange behavior and growing paranoia. To many, he seems like a ticking time bomb. February 1988, in Brampton, Ontario, it has been 2 months since 12-year-old Trina Campbell vanished. Despite fears that she may be the victim of foul play, police have no concrete leads. She is still classified as a missing person. At the same time, ex-convict Douglas Whith remains in the region, living once again with his common-law girlfriend Mary Kelly and her son Sean. Despite Whith's violent tendencies, Mary has followed him east from Edmonton. March 1988. Along with the ever-present violence, Douglas Whith is growing paranoid, fearful that police will find some reason to put him back behind bars. In a confessional moment, he reveals to Mary his involvement in some kind of illegal activity. While leaving details of the crime vague, he asks her to help him re-hide some incriminating evidence that he stashed away a few months earlier.
He had told Mary that he had some guns stored in a ravine area, that if he were caught with these guns, that they would cause him, of course, a great deal of problem.
After renting a car for the task, Mary Kelly drives Whith to a location near downtown Brampton.
He left the car with a hockey bag and went into this ravine area. He then was seen by Mary to come from there carrying this hockey bag that was now laden with something.
As Whith loads the cargo in the trunk, Mary notices a dark stain appearing on the bottom of the bulging bag. Whith tells her that it is transmission fluid leaking from inside.
I think Mary asked some questions, but due to the type of relationship that they had, I think she was somewhat reticent to ask too many questions.
Leaving Brampton, the couple searches for a secluded area where Whith can re-hide the bag. More than an hour north of the city, they stop next to some woods. Whith disappears with his cargo, while Mary waits in the car. Several minutes later, he returns empty-handed. Back in Brampton, he orders Mary's son Sean to clean out a stain left in the trunk of the car.
But the young fellow and his friend both felt that it was blood that was in the trunk of the car. There was a smell, and he was suspicious about that at the time. However, they didn't say anything after that.
With the stain still visible, Mary Kelly returns the car to the rental office. Within the next few weeks, Douglas Whith, Mary Kelly, and her son Sean leave Ontario and move east to Nova Scotia, Douglas Whith's home province. Local resident Eric Daly notices their arrival.
They came and they were there for a while. They set up house, kept very much to themselves. Didn't seem to be overly, friendly.
Many residents are unaware of Whith's long criminal past, but his extended family members living throughout Nova Scotia know all too well his penchant for violence.
The family wasn't happy when he came back. They were terrified of him. So were the local police, because of that ability to hurt people with impunity.
Their fears are well-founded. Within a few weeks of arriving, Whith begins making more confessions. He speaks openly to his sister Sharon Lewis and her husband Wayne about a crime he committed in Brampton. This time, there is talk of murder.
There was discussions where Doug was bragging about killing the man in Brampton and how he had got into an argument with him, beaten the man, broken his leg, and how he wasn't going back to jail for anyone, so he had to kill him. He had no choice. He just had to do it, which scared the heck out of Wayne. He didn't know what to say or do. Doug was pretty open about what he had done and trying to rationalize it, that it was, what he had to do because they were all family and they all had to stick by him no matter what.
Out of both fear and family loyalty, Sharon and Wayne keep the discussion quiet. But they aren't the only ones who have heard Douglas Whith's confession. April 21st, 1988. Mary Kelly's son, Sean, meets with a guidance counselor, a children's aid worker, and local police officer, Hugh Muir. Behind closed doors, he relates his fear of Douglas Whith and his need to escape the violent household.
He was quite upset, sobbing, and it took quite a while at various times to calm him down, just to get him speaking again. He showed signs of having been assaulted. He had bruising about the face and red marks. He felt that eventually, if he didn't get away, that Whith would kill both him and his mother.
Officer Muir asks him about the time they spent in Brampton, Ontario. The questions soon lead to a startling revelation.
He indicated to me at various times that he had overheard a conversation Whith had had. Whith had admitted to them that he had killed somebody. I was kind of stunned.
That same day, Officer Muir contacts police in the Brampton region.
I got the call, and he's talking about a man in Stellarton, Nova Scotia, who was bragging about killing a man at the Hotel Brampton. We didn't have any unsolved homicides in the region. The officer from Stellarton, to his credit, said, well, that's all well and good, but this man says he's killed a man in Brampton. And if he says he's killed somebody because in his estimation, he's that type of person.
With no body and no reports of a male homicide, police in Ontario have little to go on. But back in Nova Scotia, through further discussions with Sean, Officer Muir learns of the stain in the rented car. In light of the new information, Detectives Toy and Favreau quickly move into action in Brampton. Although rental agencies have no record of Douglas Whith on file, they single out the vehicle once rented by Mary Kelly.
Well, we got the keys from the fellow that was renting the car at the time. We went down to the car, and we popped open the trunk. There was a stain, dark, just a dark stain. The story is starting to come together, that maybe it's not a drunken bravado by someone out on the East Coast, that there's some credence to it.
The car is towed to a lab in Toronto. Forensic expert Bill Tostiak photographs the deep staining before moving in for a closer look.
And he pulled a couple of tufts of hair, of carpet fiber out of the trunk, brought it up to his office and tested it right away. And he says it's human blood. And not only is it human blood, it's decomposed human blood. The person that lost his blood was already dead. And the blood type was rare. So he says it's rare, but it's very common among Native Indians, this blood type.
Although no unsolved male homicides are on police files, one ongoing investigation involves a young girl of partial Native descent.
There was no indication at that point that it was connected to the disappearance of Trina Campbell. But at that point, Trina Campbell was our only long-term missing person. The scenario didn't fit, but we still felt that there was a loose chance that there might be a connection.
As investigators look into Whith's long criminal history, their hunch grows even stronger.
We immediately see that there's been attacks on teenage females, rape, sexual assaults.
His profile shows Trina as an ideal victim for him. He's attracted to young Native Indian girls.
Late April 1988, Detectives Favreau and Toy prepare to go to Nova Scotia to take a closer look at ex-convict Douglas Whith. While they have yet to find a body, and with it any concrete evidence, they feel confident they are on the trail of a murderer.
Both my partner Ed Toy and I, and we were convinced that Doug Whith had killed Trina Campbell.
April 1988, 4 months after the disappearance of 12-year-old Trina Campbell, detectives arrive in Nova Scotia to investigate their biggest lead to date, a man named Douglas Whith. Although no evidence ties the ex-convict to the missing girl, he has confessed to family members that he recently committed murder in the city of Brampton, Ontario. With the help of local police units, Douglas Whith is placed under surveillance. Photographs chronicle his daily movements in the small community of Pictou, Nova Scotia.
The profile of Doug Whith was as a pedophile. He is seen as a child molester. His prey of choice are young boys or girls. So even while we had Doug Whith under surveillance, he was seen following, watching young Native Indian girls, which was all the more motivation for the RCMP and the Pictou police to say, anything you need, anything you want, deal with this.
Despite their growing hunch that Douglas Whith is behind the disappearance of Trina Campbell, police still have little evidence to act on.
Because at this point, we're in a quandary as investigators. We know that we really truly do need a body. We need, if this is true, if this is what's happened, we know we need to be able to find that body.
May 6th, 1988. After almost 2 weeks of interviews and surveillance, detectives get their biggest break since arriving in Nova Scotia. Although they initially refused to speak with police, Sharon and Wayne Lewis, Douglas Whith's sister and brother-in-law, suddenly changed their minds.
And at that point, their consciences got the better of them, and they had to tell this story.
Interviewing the couple separately, police confirmed Douglas Whith's original confession of murder. But they also learn of an intriguing new development in the ex-convict's state of mind. As if sensing the noose tightening around him, he has grown paranoid that somebody will find the body of the person he killed, identify it, and somehow connect it to him. His apparent solution is a gory one: cutting off and re-hiding of a human head.
They advised us that Doug had approached them requesting assistance to get back to Brampton so that he could retrieve the head of the victim. Doug told him that if he could get the head of the victim, it would prevent anybody from being able to identify the victim.
The revelation provides police with the opportunity they're looking for. Perhaps Doug Whith's paranoia can lead them directly to the evidence he so desperately wants to conceal.
We wanted to find the body, and it was so incredibly important to us that we hatched a plan. Let's give Doug Whith some money and rent him a car and tell him how important it is through the Lewises, through his family member, that he's got to go take that body, find it, dig it up, and dispose of it.
In order for the plan to work, Sharon and Wayne Lewis will have to play a key role.
Sharon was very reluctant to assist, but I suppose we kind of went out on the limb a little bit at that point in sharing our belief that in fact Doug Whith had not killed a man in Brampton but had killed Trina Campbell. We were very strongly convinced that it was Trina Campbell that he had killed.
I think what turned her around was the fact that she had already had Doug babysit her daughters, who were, one was 12. So very much like Trina Campbell, very, and then she realized she just had to, as a mother, she had to.
That same evening, Sharon and Wayne Lewis approached Douglas Whith, offering him $300 and a rented car provided by police. They play on his paranoia. They tell him that not only do they agree with his plan, they think it should be carried out as soon as possible. The ploy works. Within the hour, Douglas Whith and Mary Kelly are on the road, starting the more than 20-hour drive back to Brampton, Ontario.
We immediately began to follow him with the RCMP surveillance team.
While the rented car moves through Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, police in Ontario monitor their progress, bringing 2 other surveillance cars into the plan.
There was a couple of us that were in Brampton, sort of leading the investigation, if you will, and then being the point of contact for people that were involved in the surveillance. We were with radios and telephone contact with the investigators throughout their trip all the way back.
May 7th, 1 p.m. Just inside Quebec, Len Favreau and the RCMP pull back as a fresh team led by Detective Mike Cederberg merges from an on-ramp to take over the next stage of the surveillance.
We keep the vehicle under observation the whole time. It's never out of our sight. When she took over driving, she crept it up to almost 120 kilometers an hour because he was asleep in the right front. We could tell as soon as he woke up, she backed it right back to 95, 90, 95, 100 at the most. Do not attract attention. That was the whole theme behind that trip. Do not attract attention.
8 p.m. Now in Ontario, Douglas Whith makes an unexpected exit into the city of Port Hope. He begins making inquiries at local establishments.
We were a little bit mystified, you know, and as to what was going on. Our surveillance unit would get out and they would follow him into the store, and then when they left, one of them hung back and asked the proprietor, what did that people or those people want? And they were looking for a shovel.
Although the couple eventually leaves Port Hope without finding the desired shovel, the detour leaves police more convinced than ever that their sting operation is working.
We know we're on the right track. We know we've got them significantly motivated to do what we want them to do. They're coming back to Ontario, and they're going to go to the body.
And he was very cold and calculated. He was going to remove all evidence. And that's what he came back to do.
May 7th, 1988, 10:30 p.m. After a 20-hour drive from Nova Scotia, Douglas Whith and Mary Kelly arrive in Brampton, Ontario, the same city where Whith claims he committed murder. With 3 surveillance vehicles following his every move, police hope his desire to conceal evidence will lead them directly to the body of missing 12-year-old Trina Campbell.
This was an incredible plan that we weren't sure was going to work, and it was working flawlessly at this point. We had to keep visual surveillance on this individual.
Although police feel the couple may be stopping for the night, they are soon proven wrong. After a quick drink by himself in a bar, Douglas Whith returns to the car and drives northward out of the city, along the same road he once took a bag that he claimed was filled with guns.
So, my God, they're going right to the, they're going to do this now. Followed him up north and into a very, very rural area where there are no other cars. The fact that our surveillance unit was able to do that without being spotted was incredible.
A few hours later, Doug Whith begins making detours around the small town of Terra Nova.
It was the middle of the night, it was 2 o'clock, and you could tell, it was dark, and you could tell that Doug Whith was having a tough time remembering exactly where he had buried this body.
4:15 a.m. Douglas Whith parks the car on an isolated side road. Both he and Mary Kelly remain inside. Police feel the couple may finally be getting some sleep before resuming their search.
But it was very difficult to keep up surveillance on his vehicle at that point because of where he had chosen to park without him noticing us.
We had officers situated one side road east and one side road west. That we would see his headlights come on. That'll give us a chance to get away from where he's coming and let everybody else know that he's now moving again.
5 a.m. Police continue to wait for movement from the rented car. The long hours are taking their toll.
So I've been awake almost 48 hours, and I'd just fallen asleep. As it turns out, about 5:45, one of the officers is yelling for me into the microphone, and it startles me. I wake up, the officer's telling me that the car is gone. Obviously that there had been another way out.
Dawn was upon us, and the sun was rising, and Doug Whith's vehicle was no longer where it was expected to be.
After 2 days of cross-country surveillance, a dangerous murder suspect has mysteriously vanished. Police fear that their sting operation has just been foiled.
There was a lot of concern that we may have lost him for good.
With every minute crucial, they make a desperate attempt to salvage the investigation, fanning out in all directions across the large rural area.
So I start trying to remember, okay, where did we have him the night before? Okay, Terra Nova was the little village that was probably the furthest away.
20 minutes later, on another side road, Detective Cederberg and his partner suddenly spot the rented car. It is empty.
So I try to call the other officers in the surveillance and say, we've got him over in Terra Nova, but I'm out of radio range from everybody, so I have to leave. I drive to the nearest, highest hill I can find, and I basically holler into the mic that I've got him, he's over at Terra Nova, and I can hear them crackling. Then I hear the other road boss, the other detective say, okay, he's acknowledged my transmission, so he's now rallying the troops who are now all over this whole area.
As Cederberg drives back down towards the parked car, he spots the couple emerging from the woods.
Doug was carrying a dark gym bag. I'll never forget that sight and that just immense wave of relief that washed over myself and when we saw the car parked there and then saw Douglas Whith coming out of the bush carrying a gym bag. He didn't seem to pay us any mind.
At that point, we knew, we knew he'd probably done what we'd intended him to do, go to the body and recover the skull.
After picking up their cargo, Doug Whith and Mary Kelly begin driving back south. Rather than pull them over immediately, police decide to track the vehicle back to Brampton. They want to eliminate any chance of an alibi.
Now the question is, when do we make the arrest? So you think of any possible excuse or story or that he could possibly tell in a court of law.
We didn't want to give him the opportunity to say, I found this and I'm turning it into a police station. I'm going to come into the police station.
So we followed him and we let him drive right past our headquarters in the city of Brampton, so that there's only one last place for him to go, and that's back on the 401 home to Nova Scotia. So we felt now was the time.
Police move into position and prepare for what they term a high-risk takedown.
He was virtually surrounded on all sides by surveillance cars. He just didn't know it at the time. This is probably the most crucial part of any takedown, is the actual stopping. You just don't know if he has any weapons in the vehicle. You don't know if he's expecting it.
May 8th, 1988. In Brampton, Ontario, 3 unmarked police vehicles have quietly surrounded the car driven by ex-convict Douglas Whith. After trailing him across the country, they believe he is now in possession of crucial evidence, the human remains of a murder victim.
And the cars on all 3 sides start to slow down. And at first he's not noticing what's happening to him, but they slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And then he's wondering, why is this guy going so slow? Why is this fool beside me? And then we had the last car come up onto the shoulder of the road to complete the box, and then dead stop.
And all of a sudden, we kind of jump out. We run back to his vehicle. We try to do it as quick as possible, and we try to overwhelm him with movement. He startled, and he never said anything. He's dumbfounded.
His reaction was shock. He didn't know that he was under surveillance at that point.
Douglas Whith and Mary Kelly are placed under arrest and taken into custody. The contents of the rented car are left undisturbed until forensic expert Stephen Rock shows up on the scene.
They asked if I would photograph the scene as is per our normal procedure. We do 360 degrees panoramic photography of all major crime scenes. That was conducted, and then we did closer up shots of the vehicle. Basically, when I put my head in the car and you got that first odor, and the odor was very distinctive, that of decaying flesh. And we knew immediately what we had, and when I looked in the back seat, there was a gray gym bag that seemed to be the source of the odor on the floor. And photographed the gym bag, removed it, and opened it, and found a garbage bag inside. Photographed that, took it out of the bag, and then one by one, as I opened up each of the garbage bags, there were more garbage bags, one inside the other. When I opened the last one, the skull was there.
After an examination of the facial features, investigators on the scene realize their worst-case scenario is a reality. The skull belongs to the same young girl who went missing off the streets of Brampton 5 months earlier.
Looking at her picture and looking at the remains, there were some very specific dental abnormalities in her front teeth. And it was at that point that we realized that we'd recovered the skull of the victim, Trina Campbell.
At police headquarters in Brampton, Douglas Whith is charged with murder. In his first interview with police, the violent ex-convict shows little remorse.
He just looked at us as we talked. And it wasn't a matter of whether he had killed Trina Campbell or not. All we really needed to know at this point was why. We knew he'd done it, we just needed to know why. And at that point, it was the first time he showed any emotion. He jumped up from his chair. And he punched both fists in the air and he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Who the f*** are you?"
He was very defiant and extremely arrogant in his manner. He had a look, quite frankly, of evil about him. He just oozed evil.
That same day, police returned to the woods north of Brampton and recovered the rest of Trina Campbell's remains. Although decomposition makes it difficult to determine a cause of death, there are clear signs that the young girl was brutalized before she was murdered.
We were able to find her skeletal remains, and we were able to tell that he had broken her leg prior to death. We could tell that by the blood staining on the bone.
This poor child had been tortured and then killed.
News of the brutal crime sends shockwaves across the country.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, it was just absolutely horrible.
I just thought, that's just not any way for any person to go. To have that indignity performed on a human body. It's just, it's mind-boggling.
As they prepare for trial, police find an invaluable witness in Douglas Whith's girlfriend, Mary Kelly. Although originally charged with being an accessory after the fact, the charges are eventually dropped. There is little doubt that she was an unwilling participant in Douglas Whith's efforts to cover up his crime.
She was a broken individual. She had been so badly abused over the course of her relationship with Doug Whith that she was merely a puppet under his control.
On March 22, 1990, in one of the shortest jury deliberations in Canadian legal history, Douglas Whith is found guilty of second-degree murder. He reacts with a final outburst.
Doug Whith screamed out, I'm not an animal. And I thought, how ironic. Exactly what we were all thinking.
That same day, he is sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 23 years.
The community, of course, was relieved. They were extremely glad that this person, this monster, had been taken off the streets, and that's exactly what he was. He was a monster.
The tragic loss of Trina Campbell went on to help influence changes in Canadian laws. The fact that Douglas Whith was let out of prison just 6 months before he murdered her, despite his own claims that he would reoffend, fueled debate over better ways to deal with long-term violent criminals.
And there was a lot of controversy about the release of Doug Whith, and controversy about what could have been done to protect the public. The system failed. We all deserve better protection than that.
In 1997, the criminal code was amended, giving authorities much stronger tools to keep the most dangerous high-risk offenders behind bars for good.
When I think about this case, I see the picture of Trina Campbell, that innocent, beautiful smile of hers, and how happy she seemed in that photograph, and how tragically her life ended.
You know, we didn't save Trina Campbell, but we certainly saved future Trina Campbells from Doug Whith.
And it's a sense of accomplishment to be able to be part of a team that gets somebody, especially the likes of this individual involved, off the streets.